so on and so forth. I went to Yeshiva High School, and then I went to what we call in Israel Yeshiva Gvoha, a really rabbinical seminary. And I think my father really wanted me to become a rabbi, but I had other ambitions. So
and tell us what you've achieved in your career. What kind of work have you been doing in your career?
So we had the deal that if I go to 1 year in the yeshiva and I still want to go to university after that, okay, he will feel that he's done what he could. So I went to 1 year to Yeshivat HaKotel, which if you go to the old city in Jerusalem and you walk to the Western Wall, you walk by Yeshivat HaKotel. But 1 year was enough for me. I really wanted science. Science was always my passion. But
beautiful.
I'm happy that I got very, very thorough Jewish education, including reading the Bible cover to cover. And there is one amazing character in the Bible, King David. In fact, in terms of what I would call, in terms of pages, if you look, how many pages do you get? Okay. You know, I mean, actors want to know how many minutes will they get in a TV show, and they negotiate how much time will they have on the show. So in the movie called the Bible, David gets the biggest part, and he's one of the most dramatic characters, and that's what I want to talk about today. I left my email here. If you later want to get a copy of the slide, just shoot me an email and I'll send you the slides. So David is alive and well. How do I know that? Well, we sing it. David, Melekh Israel, chai, chai, vekayam. He's alive and well. He's alive and well. That's what we sing. Now, we know that he's not alive and well, but I think this is a metaphor. The dream is alive and well. And we'll see in a minute what is the dream. Why are we saying that David is alive and well? And of course, he has served inspiration for, you know, if you want to see, this is of course the famous Michelangelo's David. There is a joke that I heard about it. Trump goes to visit Florence, and he wants to see the famous sculpture. And then once he's there, he wants to get a picture with David. So he kind of gets very, very close so somebody can take a picture of them together. And he's getting so close, he's pushing the sculpture off the pedestal. And the sculpture falls down and shatters. And everybody just gasping, oh my God. And Trump says, I'm okay, I'm okay. Couldn't resist it. I know we're not supposed to be political. So this is one David, very classical David. This is another one. This is Bernini. To me, actually, I have to say that this David is, Michelangelo David, to me always felt a bit too placid. You know, what is he? He's there about to kill Goliath and he's almost distracted. This is the guy who's going to kill Goliath. You can see that he's ready to smite Goliath. And there's also David the musician. And this is the sculpture in Old Jerusalem next to the Tower of David, I think, and it was donated by the Russian Orthodox Church and it's controversial. And in the Jewish tradition, the Messiah will be, we say, Mashiach ben David. So we don't know what is the first name of the Messiah. But we do believe that he will come from the Davidic line. And in fact, the word Messiah means Mashiach, really means anointed. And we will see that's how kings, instead of being crowned, were anointed. You know, I don't know that I would have to have olive oil on my head, but that's the way you anointed a king. And so HaMashiach, which is what we say HaMelech HaMashiach, the anointed king, will come from the house of David. So David is history, but also in some sense at least for people who really expect every day. In fact, 2 weeks before Passover, the health minister of Israel was asked, everybody stuck at home, how are we going to celebrate Passover? And he said, not to worry, that 2 more weeks, the Messiah can come in these 2 weeks and save us from the virus. I guess that didn't happen, and Litzman lost his job. So how it began? And so what I'm going to do here in this talk is really just go through the biblical story. And instead of telling it in my own words, I will add the Bible, and I like the King James Version. I really like the King James Version. And I would like I simply selected, I would say, critical paragraph that tell us, that give us the storyline in important junctures. And we will just read the Bible as it is. In fact, instead of me reading it, I will have you reading it. So can we mute, who is this, Lisa? Can we unmute Lisa and ask Lisa to read this, how it began? Lisa, would you?
Yes, I'm here, sorry. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all thy children? And he said, there remaineth yet the youngest, and behold, he keepeth the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he come hither. And he sent and brought him in. Now he was ruddy, and withal of a beautiful countenance, and goodly to look to. And the Lord said, arise, anoint him, for this is he. Then Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed him in the midst of his brethren, and the Spirit of the Lord came upon David from that day forward.
So this is a young shepherd boy, and we don't know exactly why, but God says, what is this? For this he, this is the one, this is the chosen one. Go ahead and call him, and he gets anointed. So this shepherd boy is now anointed. The background of the story is that Samuel was fed up with Saul, with King Saul. We need a new king, and David was the shepherd boy, was selected. He is going to be the future king. Okay, and that begins, and this is also the beginning of a complicated relationship between King Saul, who is still the king, and David. Can we unmute Eric Lippman to read it?
Okay. Wherefore Saul sent messengers unto Jesse and said, send me David thy son, which is with the sheep. And Jesse, it's a little cut off, with an ass laden with bread and a bottle of wine and a kid, and sent them by David his son unto Saul. And David came to Saul and stood before him, and he loved him greatly and became his armor bearer.
So at the beginning, David almost, it's like one of Saul's sons, and he become like a brother to David and Jonathan. Become it's a what people call today bromance. Okay. So he's really almost a part of the royal family. And then there is the war with the Philistines. We'll come back, talk a little bit about who the Philistines were, but let's go down. Who is B.B. Derman?
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can hear you. Well, not anymore. We can hear you. Maybe we try the Sandy Winner. Can we unmute Sandy?
And there went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. He had a helmet of brass upon his head, and he was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of iron. And he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, why are ye come out to set your battle in array? am not I a Philistine, and ye servants to Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. When Saul and all Israel heard those words of the Philistines, they were, and then it's cut off, dismayed and greatly afraid.
Greatly afraid. Why are they so afraid? Because this is what Goliath looked like in some painting. He's a huge guy. I mean, they go on to tell you just how heavy the armor was. So we could, you know, when we hear this, we don't quite, it doesn't mean to us exactly how much is 5,000 shekels of iron. But I'm guessing it was a lot. So tell you, even his armor was so heavy, no normal human being can carry such an armor. So who is going to fight such a monster? Can David Finger, would you please read it? Can we unmute David Finger?
I'm here. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comest to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield, but I come to thee in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, with whom thou hast defied. And it came to pass, when the Philistine arose and came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran toward the army to meet the Philistine. And David put his hand in his bag and took thence a stone and slang it and smote the Philistine in his forehead, that the stone sunk into his forehead and he fell upon his face to the earth.
Thank you.
He was a brave guy.
So this is why, to me, this Bernini David is a much more capturing the spirit, what's happening, the story, the drama of the story, than the more placid David of Michelangelo, who is about to go into a fight with this monster, and he just seems just too contemplative for the moment. This is that I imagine David in that moment. So now the relationship, relationship, the familial relationship almost that David and Saul had, takes a darker twist now. Gail, would you read us this story? Gail Kutin.
And it came to pass as they came, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistine, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul, with tabrets, with joy, and with instruments of music. And the women answered one another as they played and said, Saul hath slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. And Saul was very wroth, and the saying pleased him. And he said, they have ascribed unto David 10,000s, and to me they have ascribed but thousands. And what can he have more but the kingdom?
So now Saul is starting to think, if David is the big hero, he will probably aspire to become the king, and he is now threatened by David. So this love relationship is now going dark. Let's go to the next one. Naftali Vardi, are you there? What an amazing coincidence! Another Vardi. This is my brother in Israel.
Forgive my Israeli accent. And Saul was afraid of David.
No worse than mine, Tali. No worse than mine.
Competing well. And Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with him and was departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from him and made him his captain over 1,000. And he went out and came in before the people. And David behaved himself wisely in all his ways, and the Lord was with him. Wherefore, when Saul saw that he behaved himself very wisely, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he went out and came in before them.
So this young shepherd boy, who turned out to be also just a formidable fighter, personally, very brave, goes with a stone against Goliath. Turns out he's also a good politician. He behaved wisely. This is very important feature for someone who aspires to be a leader. So David is becoming more and more popular, and you can imagine that Saul is becoming more and more jealous of him. And then there is another twist here. This is really, just think about it. If you make a TV series out of it, the drama, every paragraph here is an episode, is a weekly episode full of drama on TV. Beverly Ginsburg.
Me unmute. Okay. And Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David, and they told Saul, and the thing pleased him. And Saul said, I will give him her, that she may be a snare to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Wherefore Saul said to David, thou shalt this day be my son-in-law in one of the twain. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David well to be the king's son-in-law. And Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, to wife.
Now this is really Machiavellian. He gives him his daughter in marriage, but the purpose is that Michal may be a snare. And the goal is somehow he will be snared and he will be killed by the Philistine. This is really, Okay, David and Michal. Let's go back to David and Saul. Money. Can we unmute Money?
Everything here, just on the right. It's
okay.
Hold on, hold on.
No, he's still muted. We need to unmute Money.
Okay.
Okay.
Hold on. Can you hear me?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I think I'm okay. The right may be cut off a little bit on my screen, but that's life. Okay. And Saul sought to smite David, even to the wall with the javelin, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence, and he smote the javelin into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. Saul also sent messengers unto David's house to watch him and to slay him in the morning. And Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, if thou save not thy life tonight, tomorrow thou shalt be slain.
So now the jealousy has turned to be into a death wish. Now Saul wants to kill David. And actually Michal, which was supposed to be the snare, becoming David's savior, he says, get out of it. Get the hell out of Dodge, because tomorrow you'll not be alive. So now David, what do we have? We had a shepherd, warrior, a captain, politician. Now he's a refugee. Again, this is another famous painting by Guernico, David and Saul. Saul is trying to kill David. So now David is an outlaw. Okay, let's see, who else do I see here? Sarah Norris. Sarah, would you please read it?
David and his men, which were about 600, arose and departed out of Keilah, and went whithersoever they could go. And it was told Saul that David was escaped from Keilah, and he forbare to go forth. And David abode in the wilderness and strongholds, and remained in a mountain in the wilderness of Ziph. And Saul sought him every day, but God delivered him not into his hand.
So he's not really a refugee. I mean, he's an outlaw. He has a big gang with him of 600 warriors that are on his side. Okay, this is now a formidable force, and we will see that David does not hesitate to use this force that he is commanding. So until now, if you look all the story till now, David was a very positive character. shepherd boy, fighter, wise captain, and now, no, he's running away. He's an outlaw, but that's because Saul it's not really his fault. Saul wants to kill him. But now the story gets a darker tone. We see a new side of David here. Janice, would you please read to us David and Abigail?
And there was a man in Maon whose possessions in Carmel. And the man was very great, and he had 3,000 sheep and 1,000 goats, and he was shearing his sheep in Carmel. Now the name of the man was Nabal, and the name of his wife Abigail. And she was a woman of good understanding and of a beautiful countenance. But the man was churlish and evil in his doing. And David heard in the wilderness that Nabal did shear his sheep.
In Hebrew, Nabal is Naval, which is a churlish guy. I mean, really, his name is he. His name describes him. Okay, Nancy Fried, would you like to read the next chapter of the story?
This is David and Abigail?
Yep, number 2.
And David sent out 10 young men, and David said unto the young men, Get you up to Carmel, and go to Nabal, and greet him in my name. And thus shall ye say to him, Peace be both to thee, and peace be to thine house, and peace be unto all that thou hast. And now I have heard that thou hast shearers. Now thy shepherds, which were with us, we hurt them not, neither was there aught missing unto them, all the while they were in Carmel. Wherefore let the young men find favor in thine eyes, for we come in a good day. Give, I pray thee, whatsoever cometh to thine hand unto thy servants, and to thy son David.
Now this, to me, when I read it, this is a scene out of what movie? Choose a movie here. What movie? The Godfather. Nice store you have here. And we've been around and nothing happened to your store. It's a nice store. Suppose something happened to your store. I mean, this is a classical protection racket. Classical protection racket. I guess if you have to sustain 600 men in the wilderness, well, you have to get food somewhere. So that's how you get food. Let's go on with the story. Who hasn't read yet? I need to see here oops.
Hi, it's Barbara Derman. I could read the next one.
Please, please.
Okay, and Nabal answered David's servants and said, Who is David? And who is the son of Jesse? And David said unto his men, Gird ye on every man his sword. And they girded on every man his sword. And David also girded on his sword. And there went up after David about 400 men, and 200 abode by the stuff.
So this is his a good strategy. 200 men stay to keep the camp. 400 men go, and they go after Nabal. Next chapter, Cynthia.
Oops. Let's see. Okay, I'm not on mute. Okay.
Yeah.
The right word there is gone, starting with an S, but Samuel. Okay, now David had said, sorry?
Surely.
In vain have I kept all that this fellow hath in the wilderness, so that nothing was missed of all that pertained unto him. And he hath requited me evil for good. So and more also do God unto the enemies of David. If I leave of all that pertain to him by the morning light, any that pisseth against the wall.
Now, what's amazing to me here is not that David, well, he's in a protection racket, and of course, if you are in this business, unless you you stand by your threats, and nobody will pay attention to you. But the righteousness here is amazing. It doesn't say, well, you know, I have to feed my man. I'm sorry I have to do it, but I have to do it. The righteousness, I mean, he's indignant that this man is refusing to feed his men. Okay, let's go on. I need to find Rona. Can you read? You have to unmute yourself.
I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, and when Abigail saw David, she hasted and lighted off the ass and fell before David on her face and bowed herself to the ground and fell at his feet and said, "Upon me, my Lord, upon me let this iniquity be, and let thine handmaid, I pray thee, speak in thine audience and hear the words of thine handmaid."
So she was clearly smarter than Nabal. She understood what this is about and what's going to happen. And she said, well, we have to do something here. So she mounted an intervention. The story goes on. This is a good one. Okay, let's find someone who, let me try to find someone who hasn't read. Okay. We can try again, Bibi Derman. Can we try you again?
Sure.
Okay.
And Abigail came to Nabal, and behold, he held a feast in his house, like the feast of a king. And Nabal's heart was merry within him, for he was very drunken. Wherefore she told him nothing, less or more, until the morning light. But it came to pass in the morning, when the wine was gone out of Nabal, and his wife had told him these things, that his heart died within him, and he became as a stone. And it came to pass about 10 days after that the Lord smote Nabal, that he died.
So you may wonder, you know, what a coincidence. Nabal died within 10 days later, because when his heart died within him, it's just a metaphor. He's not dead. But within 10 days, he does die. We don't know how. It's attributed to God. But let's see what is the next thing that happens. Aaron Howard.
And when David heard that Nabal was dead, he said, "Blessed be the Lord that hath pleaded the cause of my reproach from the hand of Nabal, and hath kept his servant from evil. For the Lord hath returned the wickedness of Nabal upon his own head." And David sent and communed with Abigail, to take her to him to wife. David also took Ahinoam of Jezreel, and they were also, both of them, his wives.
So now you wonder, how did Nabal die? And all we can do is speculate. Did Abigail find a way to do the deed? Did David somehow send someone to do it? You know, the fact that so quickly after that, he marries her, and you think, well, maybe he had a crush on her. But just within a few verses later, he had a crush on someone else. So this shepherd boy, warrior, or outlaw, we start to see the old phrase, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And again, there are many, many paintings, and this is David and Abigail. David, and you see, David has a weakness for women. We'll see it later. It comes back to haunt him later. Okay, let's go back to this. Remember, David is an outlaw. He's on the run from Saul, Cantor Levin. You have to unmute yourself. We can't hear you.
So David and Abishai came to the people by night, and behold, Saul lay sleeping in the trench, and his spear struck in the ground at his bolster. But Abner and the people lay around him. Then said Abishai to God, God hath delivered thine enemy into thine hand this day. Now therefore let me smite him, I pray thee, with the spear even to the earth at once, and I will not smite him the second time. And David said to Abishai, destroy him not, for who can stretch forth his hand against the Lord's anointed and be guiltless?
So he's still an honorable man. I mean, he said, he's the king. I will not commit regicide, definitely not when they're all asleep. In contrast, if you go back to the beginning of Texas, we had very close to Houston, we had the battle of, just east of here. Anybody can remind me, what is the name of the place?
San Jacinto.
The Battle of San Jacinto, where the Mexican army was taking a siesta. And the Texan says, now is the time to attack. Now is the time to attack. The death of Saul, Martin Kagan.
And the battle went sore against Saul, and the archers hit him, and he was sore wounded of the archers. Then said Saul unto his armor-bearer, draw thy sword, and thrust me through therewith, lest these uncircumcised come and thrust me through, and abuse me. But his armor-bearer would not, for he was sore afraid. Therefore Saul took a sword and fell upon it. And when his armor-bearer saw that Saul was dead, he fell likewise upon his sword and died with him. So Saul died, and his 3 sons, and his armor-bearer, and all his men that same day together.
So this was a horrible defeat to the Philistine. And Saul and 3 sons, including Jonathan, are killed that day. And again, Saul killing himself is again inspiration for many, many paintings and works of art. Now remember, David was really a member of that family. So he is distraught about what happened. Sue Resnick.
And David lamented with this lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan his son. The beauty of Israel is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty is vilely cast away, the shield of Saul, as though he had not been anointed with oil. How are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished?
This phrase, how are the mighty fallen, in Hebrew, ech naflu giborim. We just had Yom Ha'atzmaut, and before that Yom HaZikaron, and we still use this phrase to mourn about the people who fell in battle. Ech naflu giborim. And this goes back to David's lamentation over Saul and over Jonathan. So now, Saul is dead, 3 sons are dead, and David, this is an opportunity for David to rise up. Brother Goldberg.
That David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And the Lord said unto him, go up. And David said, whither shall I go up? And he said, unto Hebron. And the men of Judah came, and there they anointed David king over the house of Judah.
So whatever you want to think, you think about the politics and about the West Bank and annexation, no annexation, but Hebron is where the kingdom of David started in the city of Hebron. But he is the king, he is anointed in Hebron. He's not still the king of all of Israel, because there is still the house of Saul. Marsha Adler.
But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Saul's host, took Ishbosheth, the son of Saul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherites, and over Jezreel, and over Ephraim, and over Benjamin, and over all of Israel.
Now the name Ishbosheth means in Hebrew, man of shame. So I cannot imagine that that's what he was named on his in his Brit Milah. They called him man of shame. This must be some kind of a name later on was called him. So now there is a civil war. Susan's iPad, could you please read? Susan.
And there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Israel before the servants of David. Now there was a long war between the house of Saul and the house of David, but David waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Saul waxed weaker and weaker.
So this is really like the War of the Roses here. There are different houses and they're competing, and one house is weakening and the other house is getting stronger and stronger. Now, how does it end? Let's see, how does it end? This War of the Roses. Gail Toland.
So Abner came to David the Hebron, and 20 men with him. And David made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto David, I will arise and go, and will gather all Israel unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth. And David sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him there under the 5th rib, that he died for the blood of Asahel, his brother.
So what's happening here? First of all, Abner is committing treason. He is the general of Ishbosheth, but he's not coming to negotiate peace. He's basically coming and tell David, I will switch to your side. And so he's basically offering to surrender. So first of all, Abner is committing treason. And then Joab is committing treachery and murder. And he smote him under the 5th rib. This is important somehow, under the 5th rib, and not the 4th rib, and not the 6th rib, the 5th rib. Why? Because Abner killed Joab's brother, Asahel, in some previous skirmish, even though that was in some sense a fair skirmish. And now we're coming to the end of the house of Saul, Jeff and Nachenberg.
And the sons of Rimmon, the Beerothite, Rechab, and Boanah went and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth, who lay on a bed at noon. And they came thither into the midst of the house, as though they would have fetched wheat. And they smote him under the 5th rib. And they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto David to Hebron. And David commanded his young men, and they slew him, and cut off their hands and their feet, and hanged them up over the pool in Hebron.
So this was again treachery. I mean, these people murdered the head of the house of Saul, Ishbosheth, and they thought that they will gain favor with David. And David, remember, David was one who had respect for the house of Saul, and he did not want to commit regicide. And so they get punished and they are killed. I need to check the anatomy book, why the 5th rib is so important here. But apparently, if you want to knife someone, you must do it under the 5th rib. So now David is the king. So all the elders of Israel came to the king to Hebron, and King David made a league with them in Hebron before the Lord, and they anointed David king over Israel. David was 30 years old when he began to reign. and he reigned for 40 years. So this is where, at this point, the civil war is over. Everybody recognizes David is the king, and he will be king. He will be king overall for 40 years. Again, if you want to think of something, this whole story is reminiscent of Games of Thrones, right? This competition, treason, treachery, quite an amazing story. So now we are dealing with David the king. Ted Mendelssohn.
And the king and his men went to Jerusalem unto the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land. Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, the same is the city of David. So David dwelt in the fort and called it the city of David. And David built round about from Millo and inward. And David went on and grew great, and the Lord God of hosts was with him. And David took him more concubines and wives out of Jerusalem after he was come from Hebron. And there were yet sons and daughters born to David.
So now David is a king. He is the undisputed king. He conquers Jerusalem from the Jebusites. So that's where our relationship with Jerusalem starts. Okay, sometimes around 3,000 years ago, David conquers Jerusalem and makes it the seat of his kingdom. And like any other king in the Middle East, you need to have a harem to somehow establish you that you're a king, and you need to have many, many descendants. Now he has one huge threat to his kingdom, and these are the Philistines. Marsha Adler.
But when the Philistines heard that they had anointed David king over Israel, all the Philistines came up to seek David. And David heard of it and went down to the hold. And David inquired of the Lord, saying, shall I go up to the Philistines? Wilt thou deliver them into mine hand? And the Lord said unto David, go up, for I will doubtlessly deliver the Philistines to thy hand. And David did so, as the Lord had commanded him, and he smote the Philistines from Geba until they came to Gaza.
Gaza, yeah, Gaza.
Gaza.
So who were the Philistines? If you go through the book of Samuel, they are the Israelites' most implacable foe. Now it's a bit of a mystery exactly who the Philistines are. They are not Semitic people. They are connected apparently with the people of the sea. So we know that in the 12th, 13th century, there was mass migration from the area today associated from the Hellenic area. People migrated from the Aegean, people migrated eastwards. Huge disruption to the Middle East. In fact, there is a kind of a theory that the way that the Israel arose was because there was decline of prior kingdoms caused apparently by the Philistines. But you read Samuel A and B and Kings 1, and there is this huge fight all the time with the Philistines. And David finally defeated them. After David defeats the Philistines, they disappear. I mean, we don't know that they were exterminated, but they disappeared as a military force. So this is a major military accomplishment by David defeating the Philistines. Now remember, David has a weakness for women. Now we get the story before was, well, it was not completely clear, you know. Nabal died somehow and David married Abigail, okay. But now there's no ambiguity about the sordidness of the affair of David and Bathsheba. Jennifer Finger.
And it came to pass in an evening tide that David arose from off his bed and walked upon the roof of the king's house. And from the roof he saw a woman washing herself, and the woman was very beautiful to look upon. And David sent and inquired after the woman, and one said, Is not this Bathsheba, the daughter of Eliam, the wife of Uriah the Hittite? And David sent messengers and took her, and she came in unto him, and he lay with her. And the woman conceived and sent and told David and said, I am with child.
I am with child. The phrase that we people still use today, I am with child, there where it comes from. I am with child. So, I mean, David is watching to see a woman bathing. I'm assuming she was naked, so she was beautiful to look upon. And David arranges essentially he said, okay, I want her. Now she's pregnant, and there is a little, again, you can see Gregory Peck here with Susan Hayward, David and Bathsheba. This is such a dramatic story. Movie was made on this. But now David has a problem. She's pregnant and she's a married woman. So something needs to be done about that. Michael Moore.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
So, and it came to pass in the morning that David wrote a letter to Joab and sent it to the hand of Uriah. And he wrote in the letter, saying, Set ye Uriah in the forefront of the hottest battle, and retire ye from him, that he may be smitten and die. And it came to pass, when Joab observed the city, that he assigned Uriah unto a place where he knew that valiant men were. And the men of the city went out and fought with Joab, and there fell some of the people of the servants of David, and Uriah the Hittite died also.
So basically, they arranged for him to be killed in battle. So there is a cover that he was killed in battle, but we know how that happened. So what's the end? And when the wife of Uriah heard that Uriah's husband was dead, she mourned for her husband. She said Shiva. And when the Shiva is over, when the morning was past, David sent and fetched her to his house, and she became his wife and bare him a son. But the thing that David had done displeased the Lord. I would be disappointed if he didn't displease the Lord. This is such a sordid affair. So how does it end? Shira Moses.
And David said unto Nathan, I have sinned against the Lord. And Nathan said unto David, the Lord also hath put away thy sin. Thou shalt not die. Howbeit, because by this deed thou hast given great occasion to the enemies of the Lord to blaspheme, the child also that is born unto thee shall surely die. And David comforted Bathsheba his wife, and went in unto her, and lay with her, and she bare a son, and he called his name Solomon, and the Lord loved him.
So the Lord is displeased. So David loses the son, the first son that Bathsheba gave him. But then she gave him another son, and this is who going to become a great king, King Solomon, and the Lord loved him. So the Lord was displeased, but it didn't last very long somehow. Oh, well, okay, let's move on. Now David he's a big king. He defeated the Philistine, and he's now a big king. Gail Toland. Gail, are you there?
You can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Joab was over all the host of Israel, and Adoram was over the tribute, and Jehoshaphat, the son of Ahilud, was recorder. And he gathered together all the princes of Israel with the priests and the Levites. Now the Levites were numbered from the age of 30 years and upward, and their number by their polls, man by man, was 38,000. of which 24,000 were to set forward the work of the house of the Lord, and 6,000 were officers and judges. Moreover, 4,000 were porters.
So what David realized that if you really want to govern a country, what do you need? You need deep state. So he goes around to build the bureaucracy that it takes to govern, to run a country. But what goes around comes around. We have seen David's sordid behavior, and now this sordidness seems to, I would say, run in the family. And so the sordidness continues. Let's see who, has I missed someone that has not read? Iris Fried, have you read? Iris?
Yes.
Yeah,
And it
please.
came, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And it came to pass after this that Absalom, the son of David, had a fair sister whose name was Tamar, and Amnon, the son of David, loved her. Then David sent home to Tamar, saying, "Go now to thy brother Amnon's house, and dress him meat." And when she had brought them unto him to eat, he took hold of her and said unto her, "Come lie with me, my sister." Howbeit he would not hearken unto her voice, but being stronger than she, forced her and lay with her. Then Amnon hated her exceedingly, so that the hatred wherewith he hated her was greater than the love wherewith he had loved her.
So there was no Me Too movement there. So Amnon rapes his half sister, and nothing happens to him. Well,
Yeah.
at least not David. David does not take action. But there is somebody else. Elaine Kellner.
I've lost it. Hold on.
No, it's okay. We can hear you.
Yes, but I moved my phone and lost.
Okay, we'll come back to you. Rabbi Teller, can you read the next one? I'll come back to you, Elaine.
Okay.
Now Absalom had commanded his servants, saying, "Mark ye now when Amnon's heart is merry with wine. When I say unto you, smite Amnon, then kill him, fear not. Have not I commanded you? Be courageous and be valiant." And the servants of Absalom did unto Amnon as Absalom had commanded. Then all the king's sons arose, and every man gat him up upon his mule and fled. So Absalom fled and went to Geshur, and was there 3 years. And the soul of King David longed to go forth unto Absalom, for he was comforted concerning Amnon, seeing he was dead.
So David did not take action when Amnon did his crime. And because of that, Absalom felt that he has to revenge his sister. And now David lost one son, and the other son is a refugee. But this is not over. Elaine, are you there?
Where I should be.
David and Absalom won.
Oh. Hold on. Got it. Now Joab, the son of Zeruiah, perceived that the king's heart was toward Absalom. And the king said unto Joab, "Behold now, I have done this thing. Go therefore, bring the young man Absalom again." So Joab arose and went to Geshur and brought Absalom to Jerusalem. And the king said, "Let him turn to his own house, and let him not see my face." And when he had called for Absalom, he came to the king and bowed himself on his face to the ground before the king, and the king kissed Absalom.
So Absalom arranged to have Amnon murdered, and the king forgave him. And what does Absalom learn from this? You can get away with things. He thinks he can get away with things. And the plot thickens now between David and Absalom. Sarah Norris.
And Absalom rose up early and stood beside the way of the gate. And it was so that when any man came that had controversy, came to the king for judgment, then Absalom called unto him. Absalom said, moreover, oh, that I were made judge in the land, that every man which hath any suit or cause might come unto me, and I would do him justice. And on this manner did Absalom say to all Israel that came to the king for judgment. So Absalom stole the hearts of the men of Israel. But Absalom sent spies throughout all the tribes of Israel, saying, as soon as ye hear the sound of the trumpet, then ye shall say, Absalom reigneth in Hebron.
So after Absalom was forgiven by David, he is starting to plot to take the kingdom away from David. Rhoda Goldberg.
To David, saying, the hearts of the men of Israel are after Absalom. And David said unto all his servants that were with him at Jerusalem, arise and let us flee, for we shall not else escape from Absalom. Make speed to depart, lest he overtake us suddenly, and bring evil upon us, and smite the city with the edge of the sword.
So David was once on the run from the king, from Saul. Now he's on the run from his own son, who's conspiring to take the kingdom away from him. Lisa.
So the people went out unto the field against Israel, and the battle was in the wood of Ephraim, where the people of Israel were slain before the servants of David. And there was there a great slaughter that day of 20,000 men, for the battle was there scattered over the face of all the country, and the wood devoured more people that day than the sword devoured.
So this is a civil war. This is another civil war. We had one civil war between David and Saul, and this is another civil war between David and his son. And it does not end well for Absalom. Beverly?
And Absalom met the servants of David, and Absalom rode upon a mule, and the mule went under the thick boughs of a great oak, and his head caught hold of the oak, and he was taken up between the heaven and the earth. And the mule that was under him went away. Joab took 3 darts in his hand and thrust them through the heart of Absalom, while he was yet alive in the midst of the oak. And 10 young men that bare Joab's armor compassed about and smote Absalom and slew him.
Absalom loses. Joab was a formidable general, and he saved David more than once, and he saved David again. Now, in many of the paintings, it is as if Absalom's hair was caught in the tree, but that's not the story. His head was caught in the oak, not the hair. So this is the denouement of this whole story. Martin Kagan. Unmute, Martin, we can hear you.
And behold, Cushi came, and Cushi said, tidings, my lord the king, for the Lord hath avenged thee this day of all them that rose up against thee. And the king said unto Cushi, is the young man Absalom safe? And Cushi answered, the enemies of my lord the king, and all that rise against thee to do thee hurt, be as that young man is. And the king was much moved, and went up to the chamber over the gate and wept. And as he went, thus he said, O my son Absalom, my son Absalom, Would God I had died for thee, O Absalom, my son, my son.
So David wins the war, but he lost his son, his beloved son. Now we are moving towards the end of David's life and career. Now he's a very old man. Aaron Howard.
Moreover, the Philistines had yet war again with Israel. And David went down, and his servants with him. They fought against the Philistines, and David waxed faint. And Ishbi-Benob, which was of the sons of the giant, the weight of whose spear weighed 300 shekels of brass in weight, he being girded with a new sword, thought to have slain David. But Abishai, the son of Zeruiah, succored him, and smote the Philistine, and killed him. Then the men of David sware unto him, saying, Thou shalt go no more out with us to battle, that thou quench not the light of Israel.
So David's days as a warrior are over. He's too old for being in the battlefield himself. And now he's approaching his death, and he's writing a will. Rabbi Teller.
Now the days of David drew nigh, that he should die. And he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong, therefore, and show thyself a man. And keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and commandments and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself.
This is nice. This is what some people call a moral will. You know, you're telling your children how they should behave and carry themselves. So far, so good. But let's go to the next part of the will. Janice Rubin.
Moreover, thou knowest also what Joab, the son of Zeruiah, did for me, and what he did to the two captains of the hosts of Israel, unto Abner, the son of Ner, unto Amasa, the son of Jether, whom he slew. Do therefore according to thy wisdom, and let not his hoar head go down to the grave in peace. And behold, thou hast with thee Shimei, the son of Gera, which cursed me with a grievous curse on the day when I went to Mahanaim. But I swear to him, I will not put thee to death with the sword. Now, therefore, hold him not guiltless, for thou art a wise man and knowest what thou oughtest do unto him. But his hoar head bring thou down to the grave with blood.
This is not a moral will anymore. So we have this old King David, but he's behaving again we've seen before how he's behaving like the Godfather. Again, this is exactly what we saw in the movie The Godfather. You know, he's telling his son, well, you should know what to do. I'm not telling you, but you're very wise. I swore that I will not kill him, but it's not me, it's not going to be me, it's going to be you, so you can do it. That's the end of, that's what we are seeing at the very end, the last scenes of David. And then, so David slept with his fathers and was buried in the city of David. And the days that David reigned over Israel were 40 years. 7 years reigned he in Hebron, and 33 years reigned he in Jerusalem. Then said Solomon about the throne of David, his father, and his kingdom was established greatly. So this is the end of the Davidic story. So let's look at David. On one hand, he was clearly a great warrior. He defeated the Philistines. I mean, he really built a Hebrew empire. He established Jerusalem as a capital. But the biblical story is the unvarnished truth. They tell us that on top of it, there's also adultery and murder. So it's a very mixed heritage, very mixed. It leaves us a story, a very mixed character. And the question that always has been, I was always puzzled, why is this eternal loyalty to the house of David? He was not a righteous king. He was a powerful king. He did some good things. He did some very bad things. Why is it that somehow we have this loyalty? David Melekh Israel chai vekayam. To me, this is a mystery. And it's not only a mystery to me, but also in the rabbinical literature, they felt the same tension. They also believed in the Mashiach ben David, and so they had to go in the Agadah, which are the stories that adorn the Bible. I mean, the biblical story can be sometimes very terse, and the sages felt the need to embellish it and add some stories. So they come up with a story, for example, how did David die? Well, David was, he must have studied the Talmud every day, and as long as he studied, Elon just could not kill him. So the angel of death had to use trickery and make the tree rustle. And when David comes out to see, he stops studying, and only then the angel of death can push him down the stairs and he dies. So they have to make David this righteous scholar who studies so much that the angel of death cannot kill him. And even the most sordid story, right, the story of David and Bathsheba, the Babylonian Talmud in Tractate Shabbat tell us, said Rabbi Shmuel, son of Nachmani, in the name of Rabbi Yonatan, whoever said that David sinned is mistaken. So they're now going to retroactively whitewash David's crime. And they find a rabbinical excuse how it was not a sin. So David had decreed that every soldier must give his wife a get. And there was a reason to do that, which is that if you don't come back from the battlefield, there were always many people missing in action, then we didn't want to have agunot. This was a solution to having agunot. So everybody gave his wife a get, and therefore technically, when Uriah did not return, the get became active, and therefore really Bathsheba was not a married woman, she was a divorcee. So they find some way to try to whitewash. This to me was the most horrible thing that David did, is the sages found a way to whitewash it by this technical solution, so to speak. But in some sense, maybe the only explanation I have here is that you have to go back. So God first chose Saul, and then he got disillusioned with Saul. And he basically said, okay, I'm done with the house of Saul. Now, when he appointed David, Sondra, why don't you read what the house of David? Sondra Kaplan?
Yeah. I can't read it. I can't see the text.
Okay. Beverly Ginsburg, can you see the text?
I'll read. I can see it. You want me to read
Unmute.
it? It's Nancy.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, please. Please read. Beverly, please read.
And when thy days be
Yes, and when well,
And when thy days be fulfilled, and thou shalt sleep with thy fathers, I will set up thy seed after thee, which shall proceed out of thy bowels, and I will establish his kingdom. He shall build a house for my name, and I will establish the throne of his kingdom forever. But my mercy shall not depart away from him, as I took it from Saul, whom I put away before thee. And thine house and thy kingdom shall be established forever before thee. Thy throne shall be established forever. According to all these words and according to all this vision, so did Nathan speak unto David.
God promised David that his house is forever. So the biblical God has a complicated relationship with humans. He's disappointed by humans, but then he accepts them. So we saw it with Noah. He was going to destroy humanity, but after that he says, okay, I know that you guys will screw up again, but no more flood. And now with Saul, he got disappointed with Saul as a king, but now he said, okay, I'm taking a second chance, but now this is forever. I'm not going to be disappointed anymore. So there was a biblical promise that this house is forever. We are out of time, so it's a bit more difficult to have an interactive discussion on Zoom. So I just want to tell you, I want to finish with a bit of an anecdote. I gave this talk in Yom Limud a few years ago, and I leave it at the end, I leave it for a discussion. So what do you guys think? What is the power of the holding power of David that we still sing David Melekh Israel Chai vekayam? And there was a guy in the audience with a Russian accent, and he said, win wars, that's it. And then I understood why Putin is so successful. So thank you very much for this interactive participation. I said I leave some books you can read about David, and I'm happy to share the slides. You saw my email, and I'm happy to share the slides. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
Toda rabba, Moshe.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
David.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank you
Moshe.
so much.
Thank you.